how they're used in publishing. So what do we mean by publishing? Well, you've got commercial publishers, you've got database curators, you've got authors communicating, you've got text miners, you've got all sorts of people involved in disseminating scientific knowledge, and all of them in some way are going to increasingly come in contact with ontologies and making more use of them. So, so that's a general stage that I'd like to set, and so I'd like to introduce the first speaker, Jay Wilson. So Jay is a technology and product manager at Elsevier. He's got particular interests in text mining, artificial intelligence, and semantic technologies, and he works particularly in life sciences and pharma.
Hello. Okay. Yes, thanks for the introduction. So yes, I have a fond memory of artificial intelligence. I studied that back in my undergraduate days, and I have to say there was a bit of a lull at the end of the 1980s when not much was happening in the area. So I'm very pleased to see that it's making a resurgence and it's finding practical applications. So yes, I'm a product manager for on-site information in the corporate markets with Elsevier. So that's predominantly pharmaceutical companies using scientific information within their own firewalls. So I have, as Matt says, an interest in ontologies, text mining, and the ways in which scientific information can be semantically enriched. So at Elsevier, this is something which we want to encourage. In particular, we see it to be important that the quality of the semantic enrichment is sustained, and that there's a transparency for the provenance of the data. So obviously from a scientific publishing point of view, anything which we produce and sign up to, if you like, we need to ensure that the quality is there. So that's one of the issues for us. In terms of major issues surrounding ontologies, I see the coordination and normalization of vocabularies as being a particular issue. Certainly the pharmaceutical companies that I deal with, they have a lot of problems, a lot of overheads in terms of dealing with multiple ontologies covering different areas, and that's something which they definitely have a problem with. So what I would like to say that I certainly come to this discussion with an open mind in terms of how the development of ontologies needs to be supported over time in terms of what business models there might be associated with that. On the time. So at Elsevier we have done numerous activities in evaluating text mining tools, multiple experiments, and we are keen to support our customers by providing information and APIs so that the content can be accessed. That's something which we're working on. We've also done a bit of work in terms of building ontologies ourselves. We have in-house our own M-Tree thesaurus, and we involved in manual indexing through our Embase product. And suffice to say, our experiences have shown us quite how much effort that costs in terms of building ontologies. That's a solitary tale for us. We can certainly see that it's not something which we can do on our own. And so that's obviously something we want to support the community, if you like, of ontology building in any ways that we can. Okay, conscious that I'm taking a bit too much time here. Some of the issues that I'd like to see discussed. I think the main issue for us is that we'd like to see how the various stakeholder groups can coordinate together. So you've got academic research groups, government bodies, there's commercial drug development companies themselves who try to build ontologies and are users of them. There's commercial knowledge curators creating different databases, and there's academic publishers such as Elsevier. And I think what I like to learn and sort of explore is how those various constituencies can be coordinated. So I think I'll leave it there. Okay, thanks a lot. So the next panelist is Alan Ruttenberg. I would presume most of you know Alan actually, but I'll introduce you anyway. So Alan works at Science Commons, which is applying kind of the philosophies of Creative Commons to science, so making data available and interlinked. He's involved in W3C semantic web working groups, and now in the past I saw from your website that you worked at Millennium Pharmaceuticals. I did kind of work on databases and integrating them, and I wonder if your experiences doing that drove you to leave doing it, setting up systems to allow it to do that more easily to turn.
It absolutely did. Yep. Okay, so I'll say a couple of words about where Science Commons is coming from to give you some background here. So we're a part of Creative Commons. Creative Commons was initiated as a way to try to solve issues in sharing culture that were originated in the digital age, and primarily around copyright, because that's the largest issue for cultural sharing. Science Commons was created to say, again, what places in the ecosystem are people not looking at, and yet if we look at them more carefully, could we help science advance more carefully? And we work in a number of areas, one of which, some of which are legal based, such as trying to make material transfer licenses that are easy for organizations to work with. My area is to work with knowledge and knowledge management, and trying to think and develop systems that show ways in which things could be better and more fluid. I want to, I'll make a few points here that hopefully will set the stage for some conversation. I think that one of the things that's not always made clear when we're having this conversation is what is the point of doing this. I think there's a lot of assumptions on different people's part about what the point of doing this kind of markup is. We'd like to click and perhaps arrive at some information that expands on what we're reading. We might want to find out some more about the person who did it. I want to make clear that the kind of thing that I think is important to do is not this kind of casual browsing around, that the target of this markup, of the opportunity is in making the knowledge that's locked up in text right now, and there's a heck of a lot of it, available for computation. And my experience, Matthew pointed to my experience at Millennium, and my experience at Millennium was that at first we built a system that was a kind of encyclopedia of protein-protein interactions. And that was interesting to a few people who liked to browse around, but it was not nearly supportable on any length. And when we changed our strategy to build tools that took that information and applied it to the analysis of experiments, all of a sudden people were all over us, basically, because we were giving them added value. So I take what the goal of doing markup on papers and extracting papers is that we want to be able to do new science when we want machines that are getting more and more powerful, and we're learning more and more ways to use them. We want them to be our allies, and in order for them to be our allies, we have 30 years or 50 years of literature locked up, millions of facts that a machine would be perfectly happy to organize on our behalf, and that's really what we want to aim for. So, given that as basis, I'll say one thing. I think that a few things. One is that I think there's an assumption that the model of this, I know there's an assumption among some people, the model of this is that authors will do some sort of markup activity on the way to their paper being published, and this will support the market. I don't think that's realistic at all. I think that there's a certain set of skills when there's a person involved that authors don't necessarily have, and that the incentives aren't right. I think from a technical point of view, we don't really know what combination of author, reader, editor, and machine will actually give us the benefit that we need, and that we need to explore that. So we certainly shouldn't have that presupposition. I think that there will be a time when machines are as flexible in understanding and reasoning as people are, and even more so. That time is not now. Right now, they are slavishly stupid, and so if we're going to have machines communicating and manipulating things, our markup needs to be extremely clear and extremely unambiguous. So that's where we're aiming for when we're doing markup and terminology. There's a lot of science to be done still in this. We have some of that happening. You've heard today about dispositions and realizations and the subtle differences between these, and yet how they are operant. Obviously, if you read text, you can see how they operate. There are many more distinctions, and we need to do more science in this. From a business point of view and a technical point of view, I think that publishers should shoot themselves in the foot, or they could not. And I think the way they can shoot themselves in the foot is to encode controls of various kinds, both legal and technical, into their products so as to get in the way of this progress. I think that they should really try hard not to do that and instead be really focusing on enabling rather than disabling. I think that if publishers are going to be consumers of these ontologies because they're going to get added value, they're going to need to take a serious investment in the issues that are important for us, the technical issues. And a first issue I think that we need to avoid is wasting effort. That means following something like the Oboe Foundry, basically avoiding building redundant ontologies, having them be high quality, and pushing so that effort is channeled so that we, instead of having 5 people making 4 ontologies, we have 5 people working and making one good ontology. I think publishers need to embrace the idea that their model, and I hear some of that happening, but I'm not sure they have it quite all the way, that their model of doing business is going to change severely, okay? And this is just simply a matter of economics and of the cost of making copies. It's changed. And so they should be engaging vigorously in encouraging new types of experimentation with machine methods, human creation, user interface. And then I think one area that I've seen lacking, I've seen some nice efforts, but one perhaps missed opportunities is that editors are potentially key players in this story, and journals need to support them with some more freedom, incentive, and responsibility so that they can come up to speed on the technologies like ontologies, semantic web, machine text understanding, and they need to participate actively in the upcoming experiments. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Alan. So, David Shotton, our next speaker, is in the Department of Zoology at the University of Oxford. He's working on projects kind of generally concerned with data access, data sharing, reuse, data integration, particularly in images. David, you described yourself as a lab cell biologist.
Yeah, I'm coming to this panel from the point of view of a biologist who publishes papers. And in looking at the transformation of publishing that's been happening over the last few years, isn't it wonderful that now we can get all our papers online? Yes, but isn't it so sad that what we get are static PDFs, which are completely antithetical to the spirit of the web and ignore all its potential? And partly for fun and partly for frustration at this situation, last summer I and my colleagues enriched a particular paper. We picked one almost by random off the web and added some semantic enrichments to it. And I'm not going to describe all of that today, but I just want to focus on those aspects that relate to ontologies. So the paper is this one by Reset al. from PLOS Neglected Tropical Diseases. It describes incidence risk of contracting leptospirosis if you live in a favela in Salvador and Brazil. And those risks basically are if you live close to rats or close to open sewers. That's the sort of bottom line of the paper. And so we took the same paper and did clever things to it, like semantic markup of instances in the text.